right, so welcome back. We're going to be going over the answers to the review sheet. So make sure you have your review sheet in front of you. And here we go. So practice questions you may use to review for your test. So this first one, evaluating expressions. Anytime I see a multiple choice question like this, and I know I want to find the answer and they give me choices, I'm actually going to use my calculator. I'm going to use that store feature. So I'm going to start with choice 1, and I'm going to store x as -10. So I'm going to type in -10, store as x. And so now anytime I type in x, it's going to be -10. So now I'm going to use my fraction tool, alpha y equals, and I'm going to type exactly what it says here, which is 2/3, arrow over, parentheses, another alpha y equals to get a fraction for 1/4. And then I'm going to type in x minus 2 and close the parentheses. I can only type in one side at a time because there is no equal symbol. So I'm going to get -3 on my left side, and then I'm going to type in the right side of the equation, 1/5, parentheses, alpha y equals, oops, nope, delete, alpha y equals 4/3, x minus 1. And I know that I have the right answer when both of my answers are equal, and in this case they are definitely not. So I'm going to cross this one out, so it's definitely not choice 1. All right, I'm going to do the same thing, but there's some calculator shortcuts that are going to help me. So I'm going to, right now, I'm going to store -2 as x, and then instead of having to retype these all over again, I'm going to hit my second enter button a few times until I see this expression, and then until I see this expression. So nope, don't want that. I want this one. So for -10, just to keep my little notes going, it had -3, and that was not equal to -43/5. So that first choice was not right. So this one is the right side. I get -11/15. Let's see what the left side has. So I'm looking for where it says 2/3. I'm going to hit second enter until I get 2/3. It's going to take a second. There you go. And I get -5/3. Oof. So not choice 2. All right. Looks like I'm going to have to store in a repeating decimal. So I'm just going to type in, and the repeating is happening on the 0 and the 9. So I'm just going to hit it a couple times. I don't have to go crazy about it, but let's go like that. Store x. And again, same thing. I think another way I can do the recalculation is if I just arrow up to the equation or expression that I want and then hit enter. All right, so -2.624. Looks like the 2 4s are repeating. So that's the right side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to arrow up to get to that 2/3 part. I'm going to hit enter on that and enter again. Oh, they're so close. -2.8484. Those look like 9, sorry. So it's not choice 3, which means, hopefully, if I did this right, it'll be choice 4. -11.3, and the 3 is repeating. So I'm going to hit the 3 a few times. Store that as x. Again, fastest way I found is you just arrow up. So this is the right side of the equation. -3.2, looks like ... And I'm going to arrow up here. Oh, they look so close. I'm going to say it's close enough, just because we didn't actually put in a repeating decimal. We only put in an approximation. So technically, these two are fairly close based on what I put in. See, I didn't put in an infinite number of 3s. I only put in a few number of 3s. So that's another reason why we don't usually round until the very, very end of doing work. All right, so a little tricky, but hey, we got through it, right? And again, it helped us use and get really familiar with our calculator. Number 2, what is the solution set of the equation 2x plus 3 parentheses x plus b equals 0? All right, so before I get all crazy and looking at these answers, I'm looking at the problem and realizing that I'm multiplying and I get 0. So the only way that that happens is when one of the answers or one of these numbers is 0, right? So if I do 0 times like 9, I'm going to get 0. So that means one of these answers has to be 0. So that's my goal, is to figure out, how do I make this 0 or how do I make this 0? And again, we're looking for x, right? So if I put in, I'm just going to start with the easier one, the b. If I put b in, I have b plus b. Will that make 0? No. But if I put in negative b plus b makes 0. So I'm going to immediately cross out the two positive b's, because negative b plus b will get me 0, right? Any number plus its opposite will get me 0. So negative b has to be one of the choices. The second option is I have to figure out, if I put in 2 parentheses negative 3/2 or 3/2, will I get 0? So I'm going to type in negative 3/2, because that's the first choice. And notice I'm using parentheses because I'm evaluating and I'm doing multiplication. So 2 times x plus 3, and I'm going to use negative 3/2. I'm using choice 3, and I get 0. So guess what? That's going to be my answer. That made negative 3/2 made this 0, and negative b made this 0. All right, I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to get out of my calculator and come back to work on the rest. All right, so find the numerical value for the following expression. Since I'm only going to be using these letters once, I don't think I'm going to use the store feature, but you totally could if you really wanted to. Instead, I'm going to rewrite what it says. So noticing here there are absolute value bars. So I'm going to write, and I make them kind of big when I draw them in, just because I tend to lose them, or I tend to make them look like ones if I don't make them look big. All right, so C and D next to each other means C times D. So I'm going to use parentheses here for the 7, for the C, and then negative 3 for the D. And then minus, and then A is negative 5, again, multiplying, and B is negative 2. So I'm going to put this whole thing in my calculator all at the same time, but I do need to know where my absolute value is. And if you go to you go to alpha window. Again, alpha tends to have a lot of shortcuts for some of the most common ones you're going to use. And choice 1 is absolute value. So there you go, abs. And I'm going to type in exactly how I wrote it here with the parentheses and everything. And then notice the arrows telling me I have to move out of the absolute value. Otherwise, I'll just keep typing in the absolute value, and I don't want to do that. Minus another absolute value, alpha table set, or again, you can go into math num. That's the other place where absolute value is. So again, math and then arrow over to num. And then I'm going to again type in with the parentheses negative 5, close parentheses negative 2, close parentheses, and then arrow out of the absolute value. Quick double check to make sure that looks right, and hit enter, and I get 11. So that will be my answer for this guy, will be 11. Always a good idea to box or circle your final answer. All right, down here, number 4, Alice was checking to see if x equals 9 was a solution to this. She concluded that it was not a solution based on her work below. Was she correct? Justify your answer. All right, before I look at her work, I'm going to look and see, can I figure out, is 9 the answer? So I'm going to do what she did, and I'm going to rewrite the equation, except I'm going to put 9 in as x. Negative 9 plus 1. I had to use negative 9 here because there was a negative sign in front of the x. And now I'm going to use my calculator, because it looks like she was doing like a couple different steps, but I can just use my calculator here. Type in exactly what it says on the left side, hit enter. I get 24. And exactly what it says on the right side. Negative 9 plus 1, close parentheses. And I get 24 on the right side. So according to my work, 9 is the answer. So was she correct? I have to go back and answer the question. No, she was not correct. Nine is the solution. Now, remember the word justify. Justify means show work to prove it, and I did it right here. If it said explain, then I would have to explain in words. She must have made a mistake. When you substitute 9 in, you get 24 on the left side, 24 on the right side, and therefore it is equal. So 9 must be the answer. But because it just says justify, was she correct? I'm going to write no. And then that work is all I need to do and show for my justification. All right, let's move on to the next questions. Moving on to our section on rational and irrational numbers. Number 1, a store sells self-serve frozen yogurt sundaes. The function C of W represents the cost in dollars of a sundae weighing W ounces. Which set of numbers would be most appropriate to represent the weight of the sundaes? So we're talking about numbers, and I specifically want to talk about numbers that are going to talk about weight of a sundae. So here's my sundae, right? And I put it on a scale. And then that tells me how much I have to pay for my sundae. So weight, right? Typically we're talking about like pounds, or in sundae times we're talking about ounces, OZ. Integers, let's talk about integers. Integers are positive and negative numbers. And if I'm talking about weight, my answer will not be negative. Rational numbers, we have seen all sorts of crazy rational numbers, fractions and decimals, which technically could be a weight, right? I could be like 5.5 ounces or something like that. But rational also include negatives. So probably why they have these two phrases down here, non-negative, non-negative. Non-negative integers, so that would be whole numbers like 1 and 2 and 3. And then non-negative rational numbers would be like 1, but then like 1.1 or like 1.5. When I'm talking about weight in ounces, I'm pretty sure you're not going to get exactly 1 ounce or exactly 2 ounces. Pretty sure you're going to get something in the middle. So this is going to be the best answer for this question, talking about the weight of the sundaes. All right, number 2, total calculator question. I have L, I have M, I have N, and I have P, all with radicals. Which expression results in a rational number? So again, have to remember what a rational number is. It can be a whole number, it can be a fraction, it can be a decimal, but it has to terminate, right, which means end, or repeat. If it's a decimal, it cannot go on and on forever with no pattern. So I'm going to type in each one very carefully. L plus M, where I see L. 2, square root is this blue button right here, so I have to hit second first. Again, if you're not sure on the buttons, please watch the calculator videos that I have shared. So this is the first one, and that looks like an irrational number. Does not look like it terminates, does not look like it repeats. So choice 1 is out. Choice 2, again, just going to type in the answers. And I'm adding n, which is 4 radical 2. Arrow out. Another number that kind of looks irrational as well. Does not look like it ends or repeats. N plus p. N, and then this is p. Again, does not look like that ends or repeats. Ugh. Last one, like number 1, right? Same thing, had to go through all the different answers. All right, 2 radical 25 plus L, which is 2 radical 9. Oop, that's a 6. Let's try that again. 9. And enter. Ah, there we go. That's a rational number. It equals 16, which is a whole number. It terminates, right? And technically there's 0.000, so the zeros repeat. All right, moving on to the next questions. copy these if you need to. And the final two questions. Here we go. The product of this and this is rational or irrational. All right, so first we need to know what that word means, because if I don't do the right operation, I'm going to get the wrong answer. Product means multiply, so I am going to multiply. I don't know why my 4s turn out to be 9s. I don't know if I just have to write them carefully. Times 196. All right, that looks better. Let's erase this crazy 4s. All right, here we go. All right, so in my calculator, here we go. Square root of 144 times, because that's product, the square root of 196, and I get 168. And 168, I think we can all agree, is a rational number. It's a whole number. It does not repeat. It does not go on without a pattern. It does not go on forever. So it is a rational number. So I'm going to cancel out choices 3 and 4. It is a rational number. Why? Because one of the factors is irrational, or because both of the factors are irrational? So let's figure this out. Is this rational or irrational? Is this rational or irrational? I know my answer is rational. So let's look at each part separately. The square root of 144 is a rational number. The square root of 196 is a rational number. So R for here, R for here. The answer is rational because both factors are rational. That is choice 2. And my last one is the product of square root of 16 and 4/7 rational or irrational. Explain your reasoning. All right, so again, I have to know what this word means, and I have to be able to do it, because product means multiply. Ugh, same thing. 4 does not like me, and I don't know why. I'm going to make just a big 4. There we go. All right, so in my calculator, I'm going to do that calculation, square root of 16, and I'm going to use my fancy alpha y equals button to get my fraction looking nice. And, I get this nice little fraction here. So now, is this fraction rational or irrational? Remember, the word ratio is in the word rational. And a ratio can be represented 3 different ways, like a fraction, right? That's a ratio. Also with the colon, and also with the word to. So is this product rational or irrational? It is rational. Explain. It is rational because the answer is, nope. The answer is a fraction. And there you go. Is it rational? Yeah, it's rational because the answer is fraction, also known as a ratio. Another explanation could say, well, this is a rational number and this is a rational number, and when I multiply 2 rational numbers, I will get a rational number. That's another way of saying it. Remember, when we looked at the example part 2 questions in class, your explanation could just be, when I multiply 2 rational numbers together, I get a rational number, and that's perfectly acceptable. Again, remember, this is a part 2 question or a part 3 question, so you have to explain if it asks you to explain. Just showing the work and writing rational is not enough. All right, I hope this helped review for your test. Good luck, and I'll see you in class.